Hey Charlotte County, this is Charlotte County COPWATCH, and I'm calling bullshit on this posting by Charlotte County Sheriff. The NBC, Dateline NBC did a thing on cold case that they busted here in Charlotte County where they solved a crime, but this is why I'm calling it bullshit. 5 people dead in jail, no outside investigation under Charlotte County Sheriff Nazi Bill PRUMMELL, and then they executed a guy with a knife, literally unloaded the whole freaking gun on a guy with a knife. They had time to use other stuff. They don't have body cameras, they don't have car cameras, they don't have court cameras. They're bragging about this, yet you have all this corruption that you can't research. 5 people dead in jail. You executed a guy with a knife. 3 freaking deputies were there and you couldn't do anything else other than execute him. You have 2,000 people that were recorded in jail. They're attorney-client privilege, which is completely illegal, yet you didn't have any
New, another inmate dies at Charlotte Jail. The Charlotte County Sheriff's Office is investigating a second inmate death in the jail in the last 2 weeks, after a man died while strapped to a chair. Sunday morning, 48-year-old Thomas Robert Andreasen was found unresponsive, just days after being arrested for violating a county panhandling ordinance June 5. On May 29, another inmate suffered apparent self-inflicted injuries in one of the housing pods, the sheriff's office said. Victor Hope Akers, 56, was deceased before the ambulance arrived. Akers had been arrested May 21 on charges of misdemeanor battery and violation of probation. Detectives and crime scene technicians responded to investigate in both cases, as standard procedure. According to reports, Andreasen was being housed on Sunday in a Charlotte County jail pod designated for inmates with existing mental or medical issues, which are non-life-threatening. At about 4 a.m., Andreasen became unruly in his cell and refused to calm down, according to reports. He later complied with instructions to sit in a specially designed chair with restraints to prevent him from injuring himself or anyone else. Throughout the morning, he appeared to be in satisfactory condition when deputies and medical personnel checked on him every few minutes, says the sheriff's office. At 10 a.m., they found him unresponsive and the medical personnel present began CPR, as additional emergency medical personnel responded. Andreasen was pronounced dead at the scene. The investigation is continuing, pending the results of an autopsy by the medical examiner's office. His family was notified Monday.
Bill, during your in-person interview, you shared with us the 5 deaths in the jail. So I'm glad that Ed just brought that up. You told us that 2 were suicide and 3 were natural causes. Please explain the steps that have been taken to correct the prevention of the suicide.
Well, we've been working with the county. For those who don't know, all sheriff's office facilities, as with all the constitutional officers in the county, all facilities by statute are provided by the county. So they own all the facilities or rent all the facilities on behalf of the constitutionals. So they own the jail. So we have to go through their processes, and some of the things what we're trying to do right now, and it's in design phase, is we're trying to build a fencing type material for our second floor to prevent jumping. Now that's not necessarily going to prevent all deaths. As we saw just recently in Sarasota County, they had one. You know, I've said this several times that people keep pointing out the unfortunate 2 suicides that were actually able to be carried out. But last year, I recognized 15 of my jail staff for saving lives in that jail. People who were trying to commit suicide. You know, when you're dealing with mental illness and you're dealing with addiction, and they mask a lot of physical and mental ailments that the people are suffering from. So sometimes it's difficult until they're coming down off the drug before to actually determine what's going on with that. A lot of people bring up the Greg Ireland case too, because there was a response to resistance during that in which he ended up coding. He was taken to the hospital and later died. A lot of people seem to think that somebody should be culpable in that and somebody should be charged, but it was investigated. The state's attorney's office reviewed it. I watched the video for what happened. They followed the protocol, and I'm not going to charge somebody with a crime just because the people seem to think that somebody should be held culpable. We're in a society right now where we have to blame somebody, and sometimes there's nobody to blame. But that doesn't mean we can't get better with what we do. So we look at each and everything that happens within the sheriff's office.
A district medical examiner has determined that an inmate who died while in the Charlotte County Jail died from natural causes. Deputies say 47-year-old Greg Ireland of Port Charlotte was in jail for driving under the influence last August. While in jail, deputies say Ireland became unresponsive after he got into a fight with another inmate and had to be restrained. He was taken to the hospital in Punta, GORDA, where he was pronounced dead.
Criminal defense attorneys are crying foul tonight after learning some of their phone conversations with clients in jail were recorded. This is the second time it's happened at the Charlotte County Jail. Last year, more than 1,800 calls were recorded. NBC2's Dave Elias got his hands on a new internal report. Dave's live in our newsroom to explain.
Yeah, Chad, the attorney-client privilege is always supposed to be confidential. However, this 11-page internal report shows the privilege was breached again at the Charlotte County Jail. It claims staff at the jail recorded 246 private calls. Now, some attorneys want the state to investigate.
Well, I think it's very serious.
Punta Gorda criminal defense attorney Scott Weinberg is talking about this 11-page report.
It says that my office might have been affected by the conversation recording. I know for a fact that at least on one client, they recorded at least 4 or 5 phone calls.
In all, the report says 246 calls were recorded. 19 jail staff members listened to those calls.
Do you think there was anything done criminally?
Perhaps. I would say that in most types of situation, the criminality doesn't occur at the beginning of the act. It comes at the cover-up.
Late last year, a report detailed 1,900 calls were recorded, including accused murderer Dwayne Johnson's. His attorney claims his due process was violated. At that time, the county agreed to update its phone recording system.
NBC2 obtained this letter from the company that provides the phone service. They say they did their own investigation, and they found that during a system upgrade, these phone numbers were never placed on the do not record list. And as a result, they were recorded.
And I think it's very difficult for the jails to protect against it.
Fort Myers attorney Scott Morey also had his conversations recorded.
Sometimes an attorney has multiple phone numbers.
And unless every number for an attorney is flagged, it runs the risk of being recorded.
It indicates from the jail that this call may be recorded. If somebody tells you it may be recorded, you need to expect that it's going to be recorded and expect that it could be used against you.
But for Weinberg, that's just not good enough.
Well, I would like to see FDLE get involved and do a thorough investigation.
Now, we just received a statement from Sheriff Bill Prummell. He says these 2 recent investigations are being taken very seriously. He's calling on his employees to maintain integrity and ethical behavior. Live in the newsroom, Dave Elias, NBC2.
5, a Wink News exclusive investigation. Tonight we've uncovered even more conversations between inmates and their attorneys were recorded at the Charlotte County Jail.
In February, Wink News first exposed that nearly 2,000 attorney-client conversations were recorded by the jail's video system. This time, 250 privileged phone conversations were taped. Wink News investigative reporter Dave Culbreth first broke the story and uncovers the latest details for us now. Dave.
Yes, as you mentioned, there were video visitations the first time around with both audio and video. This was phone calls. And even though the Charlotte County Sheriff's Office, which runs the jail, changed vendors, it's a different vendor this time around. Wink News has obtained this 14-page report, which shows that 246 phone calls between attorneys and their inmate clients were recorded from July until February. The Sheriff's Office, which runs the jail, says this happened because of a computer system upgrade and the calls were unintentionally recorded. Normally, lawyers provide phone numbers so they can talk to clients, and the jail's system should not record those conversations. In 83 calls, the Sheriff's Office says the attorneys did not provide an updated phone number. But 2 lawyers I talked to said that's not possible, because when inmates call, it has to be a collect call, and those would cost the attorneys money.
How is it that these phone calls were made to these attorneys, they were recorded, and yet no bill was sent to the attorney?
We have to give them the number to call. Rick Rule is one of the attorneys listed in the report who supposedly didn't give his phone number to the jail.
Any call that comes to my office is pre-programmed through the jail, and it's a specific number I gave them that they can make free phone calls to my office on.
Is it possible they called collect and you accepted the charges?
Our system doesn't allow that.
So now what do you make of what they're saying?
I don't know.
It does indeed have them all shaking their heads. And this could be even bigger than the previous controversy. Coming up at 6, we'll tell you why. Because, well, we'll tell you that at 6 o'clock in an hour.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us here this morning. We had a tragic event unfold last night, shortly after 8 p.m. on Markham Street. At this time, I'm going to introduce Sheriff Bill PRUMMELL, and he'll give you some updates on that. There will be no questions asked at this time.
Hello. At approximately 8:10 p.m. last night, we received a 911 call regarding a domestic. Deputies responded. During the 911 call, a male was heard making threats toward deputies. As the deputies responded, they heard some noise in the woods to the left of the residence. As they approached, a male subject appeared out of the woods holding 2 knives, one of them quite large. He raised them up and was approaching the deputies. As the deputies began to back away and ordered him to stop, he continued advancing toward them with the knives raised. One of the deputies then fired several rounds, striking a white male who was later identified as Jacob Tolby. After he was shot, he fell to the ground. The deputies immediately rendered aid, and they used their officer down kits, but unfortunately he did succumb to his injuries. The deputies have been placed on administrative leave as policy. I did contact State Attorney Steve Russell last night at the scene. He did send an investigator out to work alongside our investigators as we work through this investigation. The deputies are doing well, and the family is doing as good as can be expected under the circumstances. I just ask that you keep them in your thoughts and prayers as we work through this tragic event. We have not had any other related calls for service with Mr. Tolby or at that residence. The only other calls for service we've had out there was related to a fire and to a dog complaint. Mr. Tolby's only known record was out of Wisconsin for a petty theft. So we have not had any run-ins with Mr. Tolby down here in Charlotte County. So as the investigation continues and we're able to provide some more information, I will provide you more information at that time. Thank you very much.
As soon as we learn more. For now, we're live in Charlotte County. I'm Nicole.
Breaking news that we've been following overnight comes from Charlotte County. An investigation is underway there into a sheriff's deputy shooting.
We know it happened during a domestic disturbance call. Wing News is live at the scene. What are we learning this morning, Nicole?
They confronted an individual who was...
Well, Rob and Jen, this is all where it happened last night, a little about 8 o'clock last night. West of the way to show you can see it is still an active scene right now. We do have a couple Charlotte County deputies still out here at this hour. They've been out here since it all unfolded around 8 o'clock last night. This is on Markham Street in Englewood. Right now we're told deputies were called into this home for a domestic disturbance, but when they got here, they tell me at least one person was armed. Oh, those deputies telling us they were forced to shoot. Now, we are still waiting on gathering a little bit more information on what led up to the shooting, as well as the name of the person who was shot and killed. All we know right now for sure is that one person is dead following this overnight confrontation with deputies, but we are expecting an update with Sheriff Bill Prummell this morning at 11 a.m. He'll tell us some more details on exactly what happened overnight. We'll bring you those live updates as soon as we learn more. For now, we're live in Charlotte County. I'm Nicole Valdez, Wink News now.
Hey, Sheriff, we have a question about why your office, your intelligence division, is investigating private citizens for criminal investigation that happen to be activists that are overseeing your department. Why would you have your intelligence division investigate private citizens? We have done...
For life hating so much.
Sir, we don't hate anyone. We love freedom and we love American people. And government is out of control. That's why you're seeing such a revolt nationwide. Why can't you just answer, why is Susan Edwards, your intelligence division, investigating private citizens? This should not happen.
Are you here to apply for a job?
Possibly I might be applying for a job, but that's irrelevant to my question. Why would you ask that question?
Well, enjoy the fair.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Excuse you?
Excuse me, sir.
So those of you that haven't been on a bike before...
Sheriff's getting a little too pushy. You work for us, Sheriff. Just keep that in mind. At one time we respected you, but not with that type of attitude.